Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Alicia Watley.
I'm Tim Havler.
And I'm Mike Broad.
All right, Tim, what's the scenario?
The insured bought a house in Oregon and took out insurance under a 2011 ISO HO3. He lived there for a month, but then moved back to California and started renting out the Oregon house to a local couple. 6 months later, the couple stopped paying rent. In fact, they disappeared with no trace.
Wow.
When the insured went to check up on the house, he discovered it had been trashed. Walls were dirty, carpet was dirty, graffiti in the bathroom, hole in the bedroom wall, bottles and cans everywhere, dog urine. The insured wanted his homeowner's insurer to pay for full coverage A, cleanup, and restoration. The adjuster feels like this is just the risk you take when you rent your house, but she is diligently looking through the policy to do a proper coverage analysis. So the moral of the story is choose your tenants wisely. This is not an infrequent occurrence. Have either of you ever heard of something similar or have any personal experience with this kind of thing?
I don't know, man. I have seen my share of apartment units that have been destroyed and trashed by just negligent people. I've seen, as it was mentioned before, someone had a dog and just let their dog go wherever they were at the time. Uh, they destroy closets and beds, putting holes in the wall, destroying the walls. It's amazing how many people feel like that's okay, you know?
I don't know that folks feel it's okay, Alicia. I think this takes me back to my college days when just had some trashed people that then trashed some stuff. So it just kind of happens. But Tim, in this scenario, since they disappeared, any thought that maybe it was some kind of alien abduction?
Oh, jeez.
We could get SIU on it and see if they want to see if that's a legitimate possibility. I always say keep all doors open in the investigation.
Correct. Because, yeah, it's just odd that they would suddenly disappear. And I don't think anybody's
Well,
done the analysis.
if I wasn't trying to pay, I'd disappear too.
Yeah, it's hard to disappear though, Alicia.
Is it
Oh,
though?
Maybe the FBI had something to do with it.
that could be. So I got a question,
Hmm.
Tim. All right, I buy a home, I get a homeowner's policy, I then allow tenants to live there. Well, that wasn't anticipated when I bought a homeowner's policy. So is there any coverage issues with me leaving and then letting the tenants take over the place? Is that kind of like a violation of application or some kind of material misrepresentation, something like that?
Well, this is a tough one because there's no specific exclusion for renting out your house.
Hmm.
Now, there are a couple other things you could think about. So maybe on the application, there was a question about are you renting out the premises? And maybe they checked no, and maybe they were at the time. If
Right.
they specifically lied, then yes, that would be a defense, that would be an issue. But in this claim, we'll assume that wasn't on the application. And also, they didn't even start renting out until later. So it's not like they could have made that misstatement at the
Yeah.
time.
On
So,
the application, they
so
probably
we'll
would have
say
said that
that
they owned it.
right. The application offense is not going to work here. The other one is, and this is extremely controversial, is there's this definition of residence premises.
Right.
The coverage A gives you coverage for the residence premises in quotes. Okay, we flip to the definition section. Residence premises means the dwelling where you reside.
Aha.
Okay, what does you mean? Now we
Right.
flip to the other definition. It says you mean the named insured. So you put this all together, and if the named insured didn't reside at the dwelling, it's not a residence premises, and therefore there's no coverage A. Now this seems kind of convoluted, but actually a lot of courts have upheld this. Uh, some other jurisdictions, and I specifically included Oregon for this hypothetical, the court has said, no, that's too technical. We're not going to let you get out of coverage just on this almost series of definitions. If you want to exclude something like that, you got to state it more plainly.
Hmm.
So since this is an Oregon loss, that defense is going to be unlikely to succeed.
So you picked this scenario specifically to tell me I was wrong. Is that what's going on here, Tim?
Specifically, so we could keep the questions coming because we
Oh,
don't have a defense yet.
excellent.
All right, but what about wear and tear exclusion?
Aha.
Yeah, and I think that's the main one because houses get used, nothing stays perfect forever, and landlords should expect fairly rough wear as long as it's normal wear and tear. So it's like normal dirty carpets, walls get dirty, little holes in the walls from hanging pictures,
Mhm,
grime in the bathtub, sinks, fine. Minor damage from pets if the landlord allowed pets. These are all just part of normal living. It's wear and tear. It's
mhm,
excluded as wear and tear and not covered under your policy. Now, we can cross a line into something closer to vandalism, which is covered. That would be things like large holes in the walls for no reason whatsoever,
mhm.
removing fixtures, crazy
Appliances.
decorating. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that we mentioned in this one, it's
Mhm.
it's the degree of use and abuse. So Alicia, you've rented quite a bit,
Mhm.
correct? So of the damages in this claim, which would you say would have been normal wear and tear excluded versus which would you call vandalism?
In other words,
Uh,
what have you done to the places that you've rented, Alicia? That's
Yo,
what he's getting at.
man, I try to leave the place as exactly as I left it. So if there's no carpeting, even better. But dirty walls, no one thinks to clean their walls on a regular basis unless you've got like a big, the funds to have a housekeeper every week. So walls dirty, carpet gets dirty. That's normal to me. Where I think it crosses the line is the graffiti. Like, why are you drawing on walls? Now, granted, you can have an artistic side to you and have
Right.
graffiti, but at the same time, you're still paying rent and you are going to cover it when you leave, not just leave it and that's how you want to express yourself. The hole in the bedroom wall, again, that's a little excessive to me. Bottles and cans everywhere. I throw stuff away. I don't know about everybody else. I try to keep a cleanly house, but yeah, and the dog urine, that's just gross. Accidents
Yeah,
happen. Accidents happen. I get it, but ew.
yeah, I think I generally agree. It's and again, all these things are the degree, but the graffiti is the one where yeah, that's vandalism, that's covered, and
Mhm.
the
Well, hold
rest are
on.
kind of how bad is it?
Hold on.
Um,
Hold on.
And
Graffiti. One person's graffiti might be another person's alien
oh,
language.
or it could be a beautiful work of art.
and
Right.
it and
It,
it could very well be, but then
Could the
cover it
holes have
up
been
when you're
a
done,
portal?
or and it depends
right,
on what kind of graffiti it was. What was on the wall?
right. It could be a Banksy.
Exactly.
He was leaving his mark, and now we know how dirty it is.
And speaking about leaving marks, we were talking about dog urine.
Hmm.
And I think I recall one of our other scenarios way back when that maybe had birds and bees and all that fun stuff. What about dog urine? Is that some kind of varmint or pollution or
I think
something there, Tim?
pollution would be the one to look at. The standard definition has the words waste and contaminants.
Aha.
There is recent Oregon case law that's saying sewage is a pollutant. I don't think it's too much of a stretch then to take that and say dog urine probably could be a pollutant. The problem here is if it's vandalism, that's a coverage C peril and that undoes the pollutants exclusion. So again, what's vandalism? Did you let your dog go in the house intentionally 50 times in a row
Hmm.
versus a couple accidents is a
Right.
different thing.
Or it could have been a very smart dog who knew he had the intent that I'm going to damage his place, right?
Indeed,
Hmm.
indeed. But bears can't form intent, and nor
Correct.
can dogs.
Are you sure?
Yeah, exactly. If you ever met my dogs,
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so I've got a little twist for you. So, say I'm the guy. I'm renting my house out, and the people living there were actually perfect tenants. But when they left the walls red or some odd other color that would be hard to cover.
What kind of red? What other color? What'd you have in mind?
I don't know. Maybe someone decided to do a rainbow stripe wall
Ooh,
to,
rainbow.
yeah, just to show how
Okay.
colorful they were.
Yeah, that could be an issue. I mean, the other argument is it really a direct physical loss if you put fresh paint on the walls? Doesn't that
Mhm,
almost sound like an improvement?
mhm,
But the problem with that is if you've affected the market value of the house and your ability to rent it because most people are going to walk into Rainbow Room and say, "Oh, this place is not for me." Yeah, I think that could be a direct physical loss to your house. If you paint it from, white to cream, okay, maybe that's an improvement.
mhm.
But yeah, hot pink or rainbow or something like that, that could be a
Neon
problem.
green. Oh,
Neon green, and I would look at the lease too to see if anything like that
Right.
was allowed.
mhm,
If it was not allowed, that's even more likely to be a loss and
mm,
vandalism.
Or maybe allowed, but with landlord permission or something. If
mhm.
they didn't get it, then
Right.
yes, then you might lean towards
Correct.
the vandalism path.
Yep.
Well, it's funny. There's someone I follow on Instagram where she rents, but she like repainted all the walls. It's got like these decorations on them. It's like nice patterns, and it's beautiful. But she was able to get permission from her landlord before doing so. So she knew going in that she would be able to change whatever she wanted to change.
Right. So it's hard to argue that that's vandalism with the
Hmm.
specific permission.
So riddle me this one, Tim. Vandalism, is it excluded or is that a covered peril under Coverage A?
Yeah, that's weird because usually we think of vandalism as covered, and it's a coverage C peril, so it's particularly strong. There is that exclusion in coverage A, but that's only if the dwelling has been vacant for, was it? I believe it's 60 days.
Okay.
30 days, but I think it's 60 days. Although, editor, please check me on that one. So, in this, when they did all the vandalism, at that point, the building hadn't been vacant for
Okay.
any time at all. So we can throw that exclusion out the window too.
Okay. All right. So I live in California. The house is in Oregon. Which state law applies?
Oh,
Oh, choice of law problem.
Mhm.
Excellent question. Okay, so yeah, it's you got two different states involved here, and as you know, the state laws can be extremely different, and which one you choose makes a big difference. So there is kind of a general rule on this that comes from the restatement of conflict of laws. For insurance policies, we go with the quote, location of the insured risk during the term of the policy, unless, with respect to the particular issue, some other state has a more significant relationship. So to be less wordy about it, it's
Mhm.
going to be Oregon in this claim. The house is in Oregon. That's the location of the insured risk. The insured started off living in Oregon, got the policy in Oregon.
Mhm.
That's the default rule, and I see no compelling need to override that.
and the damage happened there, right?
Mhm.
And the damage happened right there.
All right. So Tim, what can we take away from this scenario?
To recap, the insured rented out his Oregon dwelling and the tenants trashed it. There can be coverage under a standard homeowner's form for any damage that rises beyond normal wear and tear. Landlords can expect fairly rough wear from their tenants, but there's a line that can be crossed. Separately, any damage that took the form of contamination, for example, perhaps the dog urine, might be considered a pollutant, although if the pollutant was released due to vandalism, that would nullify the pollutant's exclusion. And finally, Mike, where can an adjuster go to learn more?
Well, you can always check us out at plrb.org. I know there's cool coverage questions that folks can dig into. There's ones, I know we have stuff on hoarding and damage from that. So there are a lot of cool stuff. Check us out either under the coverage sections or your friends on the education side might have some cool stuff.
And don't forget, we can share the links in the show notes. And you can always find a recap of the key points from this episode. You can find links to our social media and information on how to submit your own adjuster story. One more thing, don't forget to subscribe and rate us. So we'll see you all next time.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.